Well, good morning. So it's a lovely Saturday morning. Poppy's currently in ballet, enjoying herself. I'm just catching up on the local paper, and on page 13, oh, who have we got? There it is. Poppy and Rosie were absolutely thrilled with this. Of course, they took it into school yesterday to see all their friends, but very kindly Express that they got in contact because they wanted to do a piece on the YouTube channel. So really pleased with that. But my dad, interestingly, he actually bought me a piece from one of the newspapers, and it's what happened to courtesy on Britain's roads. And it's essentially things that are really annoying people nowadays. So I think really, let's face it, the Telegraph has seen my Pet Hate series and thought, oh, that's a good idea. But I wanted to see if there were many things that kind of linked into what I've been doing on the Pet Hate series, to see if like it is similar. And the ones certainly that are coming up failing to indicate, so that is going to be on the Pet Hate series. We've of course got speeding, we've got overtaking on the left, they call it undertaking. There will be one on that in this Pet Hate series. I'll try and put a bit different spin on it, and I've got some new footage to use just so I don't sound like a broken record. But the last one was interesting about road responsibilities, and that's where I was talking about in terms of like pedestrians not understanding their own responsibilities to keep them safe. But there's so many people that don't understand actually their own responsibilities. So that was a good one. But my absolute pet hate, it did feature in this article, and it is my number one pet hate, and it's tailgating. So tailgating is not just if you're right up behind the vehicle in front of you, it is actually if you're just too close to be able to stop safely. And there's a number of reasons that I find it particularly irritating, especially when I've got learners at the wheel, as you can imagine. And I'll have a few examples playing on the screen right now. And do remember, yes, the speed might be low because you've got a pretty new learner in most of these cases. But it doesn't excuse getting up so close to people. There's no need for it. And this person you can't really see because of the windscreen. This one was actually gesturing to us as well. And we just look, I just think there's no real need for it. In a couple of the clips, you can see people doing things a bit dangerous as well. So like this silver car had been tailgating us for quite some time. I've got a learner on her second driving lesson on this quiet country road. And essentially they're going to overtake at a point where it's not even really that wide in the road. It's not safe to do it. So we end up having, pulling into the left and letting them pass. The white van that you saw earlier had the cheek to, as he went past, give us a little wave to say thank you. And I thought, well, you've bullied us into that. When I speak to learners about tailgating and we've got someone behind and I'll say, oh, what do you notice? God, they're close. And we talk about the kind of behaviors that can cause this, people to do this, etc., etc. But we try and get learners to think about things so that they will not go out in the world and start tailgating people. And I'm actually yet to meet a learner that doesn't, looks at tailgating as like necessary or acceptable. They cannot understand why people tailgate them, let alone the fact they've got an L plate on, of course. But I think tailgating for me, I've had four vehicles crash into the back of me at differing speeds, two with learners, two before I was a driving instructor. And so when I have someone behind me, it actually does affect me. My heart raises if they're especially too close, if I can see them gesturing, definitely. But it's really dangerous because it takes my focus away from what is going on inside the car. And I have to make a conscious effort with my learners that when we've got someone tailgating us, we mustn't get so focused on them that we forget what's ahead. We do what we can, we keep speed where we can, we give early signals, and if it's safe to, we'll sometimes pull into the left to let them pass. But it's not always safe to. It obviously depends on the type of road that you're on. Like on this road where you're on a dual carriageway and the red car is getting very, very close at a speed of 52 miles an hour, just keeping up with the flow of traffic. And there's no need to be this close. Once you know someone's there, it's difficult to do it, but just don't stare at them. Know they're there, watch for them potentially overtake, and focus mainly ahead. You need to see things earlier to give earlier signals to this person that is tailgating you. It's not just the fact that obviously you can't stop in time if we stop, and as much as people like to think they can, they probably won't. It's actually, I see it as very, very rude, and I just don't see any need for it whatsoever. You are showing a complete ignorance of the fact that the person in front of you could be like myself, having previous trauma and therefore not wanting you right behind me. You're showing a lack of respect for the person in front of you. You don't know anything about that person. They could have severe anxiety, they could have past trauma, and they really could actually not want you to be as close as you're following here. It also, I find it quite irritating, especially lorry drivers. This is not a dig at lorry drivers, but when they do things like this, and you can hear my response. Hell, mate, Jesus Christ. It doesn't feel nice when you come up to me in a roundabout and sit that close. And again, there's no need for it. And this lorry driver does the same thing with, I've got a learner at the wheel, and when we don't take a gap that they feel we should be taking, there's a little peep on the horn, which just is, again, it's not really necessary.
If you have a look at that, could we have gone?
Yeah.
Perfect. So you can look at the speed they're coming at as well. That lorry's going left. What do you reckon now? Happy with that? Yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's going to help, mate. Thanks.
Now, if people do try and overtake you that are tailgating, of course, just make sure it's safe. So you can see this person here, they were quite close behind us at higher speed. But when they went to overtake on a double solid line, there's nothing from us that decides we're going to make it more dangerous. You can see you can hear the very first thing I say to my learner: off gas.
Forgotten what I was saying, sorry.
Oh, just off gas there, he's overtaking on a solid, isn't he? Little devil.
That's exactly the right response, and it should be. You know, if you've got someone overtaking, it's not yours to decide whether it's a safe overtake, whether it's a legal overtake in this case. It is just, let's keep everything safe. Put the right into that situation. So tailgating is covered by Rule 126. As you know, that's my favourite rule. And it is another rule that some people will not realise that you can be prosecuted for. Again, on the CPS website, an example of careless driving, driving without due consideration for others. So Rule 126, where it talks about tailgating, is another rule where some people will not understand that you can be prosecuted for it. It is under the CPS website as an example of driving without due consideration for others. And it says here, of course, tailgating. It's just when the gap with the vehicle in front is too small for you to be able to stop safely if the vehicle in front suddenly brakes. So you don't have to be like some of the people in the clips. It's definitely dangerous, as the highway code says. It's intimidating, cause collisions, especially when driving at speed. There's no advantage to it. I think that's the baffling thing with tailgating. It is something that I think some of us, without thinking, can slip into, especially if we've got into that habit, and maybe not even realise the effect we could be having on the person in front of us. But because it's not a must not in the highway code, kind of like overtaking on the left, there will be people that just think, oh no, you can't be prosecuted. But actually you can. There was a yellow lorry that tailgated one of my learners all the way through a 30, and my learner was, you could hear her getting not happy with the situation. But I sent that footage into the police because of the manner in which he was, even at 30 miles an hour and under, he was way too close to us. And I sent that into the police, and they are prosecuting. I can't share the footage because, of course, it's probably going through the process at the moment. You don't need to break the law, or if you like, you don't need to break a specific piece of legislation to be charged. The highway code is the evidence that's used. And if you have something like a should, like tailgating, but you do it and it seemed to be, yeah, that's not good enough, you can be prosecuted for it. Most of the cases I've sort of shown in my rear camera here, if I did decide to send the footage in, you know, there would be very likely prosecutions. If you look at Rule 144 in the Highway Code, so this is where, if essentially a lot of this will then come under, you must not drive dangerously, drive without due care and attention, drive without reasonable consideration for other road users. So yes, tailgating under Rule 126, it's a should, it's advice. But Rule 144, you must not drive without reasonable consideration for others. That, coupled with Rule 126, is absolutely enough evidence that you are not driving with the consideration for someone else in front of you. and that's why people will get prosecuted for it. So my advice, I think, is always look, if you can, a rear dash cam. A lot of people see a rear dash cam and I think they respond differently. Some people still don't, of course, but at least you're protected. You know, when I had my rear end shunt a long time ago, it was just so easily sorted. I didn't have to get any witnesses or anything like that. But yeah, so tailgating, it is my biggest pet hate. The effect it has on me personally is one of the reasons I hate it. The fact there is absolutely no need for it, no advantage to it, and above all, it's just really bad manners. The trouble again with all these, I always feel with like a channel like this, is the people that are watching, the people that are commenting are really good attitude kind of people, and you yourselves will probably not be out there doing too much of the tailgating. You'll be the ones being tailgated, and the people that are tailgating just won't see their problem. When back in 2018, my learner on an A road pressed the left foot onto the brake instead of the clutch. And any driving instructors will know at some point this probably will happen to you. It certainly happens less and less as you go on because you're much more risk aware, I suppose. But we stopped very suddenly at about 45 miles an hour, and the car behind straight away was too close. Now, she was insisting that we had done something wrong, which of course technically we have. We've stopped really without a need, but because of where we were and her car looked pretty undrivable, I ended up calling the police. They came out, they helped us get to a safe place, and then they took a statement. And the first thing the lady said to the police officer, oh, they just stopped randomly. And the police officer literally couldn't have cared less, and said to her, but rule 126 states that you should follow a vehicle with enough distance that you can stop safely if it stops. That was the police officer there just showing no interest in the fact that we've actually stopped. They took the statement off my learner, and she obviously saying she pressed the wrong pedal. And the police officer, bless him, you know, he was like, hey, look, don't worry, things happen. You know, this is why people should be driving properly around you. There you go. That's from the police themselves. Not interested that we had stopped randomly on an A road, actually just interested in the person that had been driving too close to us. But you know, let me know in the comments. Do you get tailgated regularly? How do you deal with tailgaters? Do you, like me, pull in if it's safe to? I mean, you should not. I just feel we should not be at a stage where we are just bullied off the road and into the side. And often it's not safe to. People should be deciding to keep their distance. Personally, I think there's no need for it. Right, I best pick up Poppy. We're going to do another Poppy's Plonkers today. Thank you for everyone that's commenting on those.